And I've been tuning into some spaces just to see what the market sentiment is, at least from the people who have a voice on X and have followers, etc. And one topic that has been brought up a lot, I don't even remember if I mentioned it last week on the AMA call, but uh, a lot of people think or theorize that if Donald Trump gets elected, one of his main, crypto-oriented promises, campaign promises, was to make Bitcoin part of the reserve. And even though the US is the biggest holder right now of Bitcoin, we might see a lot of buys from the government. I mean, of course, they are not going to lump sum into it. They are going to just ease into it. But do you think we will see kind of front running from other countries if Donald Trump gets elected because they will want to buy before the US officially buys, and then FOMO kicks in, and we see a like a race before 100K?
Well, I think you have to remember that campaign promises are campaign promises. And I think most people know that from a political perspective, especially. So I think these other countries probably wouldn't try to front run it. I think it's kind of like if they're going to adopt it, they're going to adopt it type of thing. That being said, I do think that Trump is generally a pretty positive for crypto, and just for like the world economy. So yeah, I mean, I think overall net positive, but I think a little bit of a non-event in my opinion. I'm
Well, I
much more
mean,
concerned with that we're post-halvening and the broader kind of economic cycle around the Fed and quantitative easing. What do you think, Mitch?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you could really even consider it front running, right? Because there's no guarantee Trump wins. Like for me, I'm looking at, the U.S. election as a risk, so to speak, in terms of if Trump wins, then yeah, Bitcoin probably goes up. If he loses, Bitcoin probably goes down. And I say probably because shit, the complete opposite could happen, right? So, um, that's a risk trade. If you're like in a quote unquote front run, you're loading up, and then if Trump loses, you might get owned. So yeah, I don't know. I guess yeah, you could get ahead of it, but it's still a trade risk at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I don't think it's
So
going to be a sell the news event. I think it's going to be a buy the news. Like if Trump wins, he's obviously, at least in paper, more friendly to crypto than Kamala. So I think people are just going to wait and see. If Trump wins, we might get some FOMO buys in. So
yeah, I mean honestly, I'm planning on hedging going into the election in case he loses. But with that said, kind of makes sense that maybe I'll do a leverage long as well.
Yeah, I think well, generally like risk and volatility in the markets is probably, a net negative for crypto. So like, when people get a little risk off because they're worried about something, like the election is like an unknown event, right? Like you don't really know what's going to happen post-election. You obviously don't know who's going to win, and then you don't know, what the fallout is going to be of that. So that kind of creates a little bit of a risk off scenario for most markets, including crypto, where people might not want to hold as much going into it.
And again, I think it's more so the illusion, right? Because Eric was talking about, the U.S. being like a Bitcoin buyer if Trump's in office. But, Ben Haas made a good comment and said that, he doesn't really think that they'll actually be buying Bitcoin just because the U.S. already holds a crap ton of Bitcoin that it seized. You know what I mean? So I thought that was an interesting comment because, yeah, Trump could be pro crypto, and that doesn't mean the U.S. government's going to buy crypto. It just means they might, stack everything that they already have.
Yeah. I just think it's such an unknown.
Yeah,
I personally, I don't think my strategy changes at all going into it. I think I'm pretty much positioned how I'm positioned.
I'm with you on that. Like I said, I might put I'm going to probably put a hedge on. That's about it. Everything else is me just slowly accumulating more Bitcoin, and then organically stacking Leo and HBD.
Yeah. I mean, I think that
So
generally makes sense. I mean, I've been putting on, and we are already kind of in a pretty high volatility environment. So, you know, while I have been kind of DCAing into some of this stuff like ETH and Rune, um, and just overall kind of increasing my exposure to the upside, I have been throwing on some very small short hedges at the same time, and it's been pretty profitable just because of how volatile the markets are. Because I might, for example, the other day, I bought some Rune at like $5, and then I at the same time shorted it. So like for let's just say I bought $1,000 worth of Rune, and then I shorted $500 worth of Rune at the same time. And Rune ended up, going up initially, and then it went down to like $4.30 or something. So I closed out the short, obviously made a little bit of profit on that, and then took the profit and bought Rune at the cheaper price. And then now Rune's back, just above $5. So I obviously made a little bit of profit on that volatility, while kind of hedging my buy. So we're just kind of in this volatile whipsaw environment. I mean, Bitcoin's pretty much moved up and down 2% today, just for really no reason. I mean, like the stock market's relatively unchanged. I mean, the S&P's down a little bit, Nasdaq's up like 1.25%, which is kind of a lot, but
it moved for some day traders. That's some easy day trades.
yeah,
People got off today.
yeah.
Nice little like 2K rip and then immediate down. Like that's crazy. Yeah, I just looked at like the 15-minute chart just out of curiosity. This all happened in like the last few hours.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a very short period of time. Very short period of time.